Berserk is a series that's been building up to its conclusion for nearly 30 years. Unfortunately, however, as we all know, Kentaro Miura won't be able to close out his masterpiece. That task has instead been left to his best friend Koji Mori and the staff over at Studio Gaga, which is good news for us fans because it means we will see an ending to this series, hopefully within the next 10 years. But until then, we can do nothing but theorize, which is exactly what I've done today. This is how I want Berserk to end. By the way, this video is totally for fun. I haven't necessarily thought out all of the ideas here in full. It's really just a fun example of a way that Berserk could end. And I've got it all written down. First things first, I want to preface that Berserk needs to have a happy ending, or at least a bittersweet one. Miura actually stated this himself, and Berserk has always built itself up to be about hope, overcoming trauma and finding happiness, so it would be completely subverting to everything Berserk is to have a tragic ending. I don't see Guts dying, and I definitely don't want Guts to die, but there are pieces at play that need to come to their conclusion. For my ending of Berserk, we of course have our main cast, but I also have 4 pieces that are instrumental to the ending, those being the Moonlight Child, the Behelit, the Idea of Evil, and the Cycle. So, where do we begin? Currently, Guts and crew have been captured by the Kushan, upon what we think are Ricket's orders. The Kushan are heading towards Falconia in order to start an invasion of the city. During this journey, there are 2 important things that must happen. Guts is pulled out of his depressive stupor by reuniting with Ricket, and the Dragon Slayer is altered, imbuing the power from the Beast of Darkness into the sword. This can be aided by Daiba, who has shamanic origins, alongside Shirkei. The gang thinks that the changes to the Dragon Slayer, now being called the God Slayer, will allow it to cut through to the astral realm, much like Skull Knight's Behelit blade, and this will be what lets them fight against Griffith and the God Hand. Despite Guts rising up from his position of giving up, the Beast of Darkness has been unshackled. That's what let them upgrade the sword to the God Slayer, but it's kind of uncontrollable. The group finally reach Falconia, aided by the invading force of Kushan. The Kushan were always set to invade Falconia, and Ricket thinks this is the perfect opportunity to get close to Griffith, to use the invading force as a distraction. The team descend on Falconia in a rescue mission to regain Casca. There, they meet up with some disgruntled members of the Band of the Falcon, led by Sonya. Griffith has continued waging war using the World Tree, but has also not let the sedated Casca leave his side. Sonya, despite her devout love of the Hawk of Light, has gained glimpses of Casca's memories due to prolonged exposure to them, and has seen the truth behind Griffith. So she agrees to help the band in rescuing Casca, but she also implores them to use this opportunity to overthrow Griffith by using Sonya's powers to broadcast an image of Griffith across all of Falconia from Casca's memories. Sonya isn't necessarily doing this for the good of the world, she's more doing it for her own selfish reasons. If you're watching this channel, you probably like reading. And if you like reading, then you probably need things to read. Well, I've got just the site for you, Sci-Fire. Sci-Fire is an absolutely wonderful bookstore that specializes in sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, and of course, manga. I've been using them for absolutely ages because they not only have great pricing but also fantastic customer service and top-notch packaging. Like, look at this. If you want to use Sci-Fi yourself, you can head down to the link in the description and use the code NERDLOUNGE for 5% off every order. So get yourself some books, get yourself a discount, and support the channel at the same time. Back to the video. The team press through the city with the Band of the Falcon and Griffith's armies focused on the invading force. They come to the palace, where Griffith is directing his armies and where Casca is being held. They find Griffith and Casca. Casca is still in a sedated state, but Griffith holds her close when he sees Guts. Guts sees this and his anger overtakes him. He dashes towards them. But there is one obstacle in the way: Zod. With his newly powered up sword and the unshackled beast of darkness, Guts gives in to his rage a final time and fights Zod. Zod does immense damage to Guts, but the Berserker armor carries him through. Guts' fighting is monstrous, his rage consumes him wholly, and the beast of darkness begins emanating from him. The beast becomes a physical being for a moment, representing all of the rage Guts has held. Zod sees this, loses himself for a second, allowing Guts to deal the final killing blow, but his blade falters at the last moment. Zod knows he has been bested, he knows the struggler has finally defeated him. He has found an equal partner. He moves the blade, but he lets Guts pass. Griffith is shocked by this, throwing Casca to the ground, his anger overtaking his logic, just like we've seen so many times before. Guts, seeing this violence, turns himself on Griffith. They fight, but Guts is still unable to hit Griffith. We see Guts, the Godslayer, the Berserker armor, and the now visible beast of darkness be damaged and beaten over and over again by Griffith. Griffith is ruthless, taking chunks out of the armor and the blade, bringing Guts to the brink of death. And Guts' resolve falters. Despite everything they thought, he still cannot defeat Griffith. He falls down, and in a last desperate attempt, he takes out the Behelit. And then Casca cries out. She has awoken, and Sonya sees this opportunity. She runs over to Casca, cradles her head, and suddenly everybody's minds are flooded with images of Griffith, Casca, Guts, and the Eclipse. Griffith realizes his mistake, realizes he is about to lose his kingdom, realizes they are about to know the truth. His armor turns from white to black, and he becomes the image of Femto that we've seen before. He grabs the Behelit from Guts, who has been stunned by the sudden vision, and time slows. The God Hand have been summoned. Griffith knows what he must do. He must sacrifice his kingdom, a kingdom he now knows is lost. He can ascend once more, just as King Gesserit did all those years before. This is the cycle, and it is about to repeat. Falconia will fall, the world will be plunged again into darkness, all of the hope shall be lost, and the idea of evil shall feed. Because that was the plan all along. Void's plan. Griffith was never meant to keep Falconia. It was always meant to be taken away. Griffith was built as the bastion of hope, only so that hope could be taken away. Void only serves the idea of evil. He is the void of hope for the world. Griffith was nothing but a pawn. All along, Void had been manipulating causality to aid the idea of evil. Guts carried the Behelit after all this time for Griffith to commit the final sacrifice of Falconia to continue his reign as a God Hand. But causality never defined the person to carry the Behelit as Guts. Guts only came into contact with this Behelit after he'd severed the ties of causality by surviving the eclipse. Causality and Void and the idea of evil never factored for Guts. Rickert thought the Godslayer could kill Griffith. He was wrong. But what it could do is destroy the Behelit. Guts, with all the remaining power of the Beast of Darkness, the Berserker armor, and the Godslayer, lunges forward, swinging his sword at Griffith one final time. Griffith laughs, knowing Guts cannot harm him, but realizes too late what is held in his outstretched hand. Guts destroys the Behelit, severing causality at the root. Because the Godslayer, with all Guts' added power, doesn't just destroy. It creates a void between the planes of reality. When the Godslayer hits the Behelit ceases to exist. Not only in the now, but in the past and the future. The Behelit was never at this point, which means Griffith could never make the sacrifice. Guts destroyed causality. The Berserker armor dissipates, the Dragon Slayer lays cracked about him, and the Beast of Darkness whimpers its last few breaths. Guts is left, his body broken and unsupported by his life-supporting armor. He is dying. Void laughs. Something new, he says. Void realizes the cycle is broken, or at least it is not playing out the way he had foreseen. He raises his finger, points it at Griffith, and states causality has no use for him anymore. Griffith is confused and begs the God Hand to take him. In the end, he is not prideful. He is not a beacon of light. His black armor begins to fade, just as Guts's did. And his body beneath is not that of the reborn Hawk. It is that of a broken Griffith found many years ago in the bottom of a tower. The broken bodies of Griffith and Guts lay side by side. The Hawk is gone. The Hawk who was a vessel reborn during the ceremony, a vessel fused with the Moonlight Child, a vessel which could also have been seen as a prison. But that vessel is gone. So in its place is a broken Griffith and an innocent child. Casca rushes out to Guts. She is finally able to see him after all this time. She holds him and cries. The Moonlight Child walks up to them, sits beside them. Casca is overcome with emotion, taking her knife and poising it to drive it through Griffith, but the Moonlight Child stops her. It holds her hand back until she drops the knife and envelops the child. Griffith lies there, broken, his dreams taken from him. In the end, his defeat was all so simple, so human. And his biggest mistake, his most human compulsion, the child created by his assault of Casca, is the one thing that stops him from getting the peace that he so desires. Griffith must suffer alone, broken, until the end of his days. The Moonlight Child steps away from Casca and stands over Guts. It places its hands atop Guts' head, whilst Guts' friends gather around. There is a moment of somber silence. Then, light begins to glow from the child's hands. He releases his final bit of power, the final connection to the God Hand, Griffith, and the astral plane, and he heals Guts. Puck and Ivalira tend to his wounds. The child's hands stop glowing, his energy is gone, and Guts' eyes open. And all the while, Sonia watched. She watched a man hell-bent on vengeance fight till his last breath and never give up. But she watches that man choose not to give in to anger at the end, to not focus on his revenge, but instead to do something for the world with his last moments. She watches a monster lose everything he cheated his way towards. She watches gods of death and despair be foiled. Then she watches a child stop their mother from taking another life. She watches the cycle of revenge end. She watches the power of love, of companionship, and of family. She watches the good guys win, and she puts that out into the minds of everyone in the world. And just like that, hope. All at once, every person of the entire world, helped by the interconnectivity of the world tree, sees hope in a dark world. They see love. And this does something causality could never have predicted. Where once there was an idea of evil, a being feeding on the despair of the world, a being that held its hunger off for too long to continue a cycle of death and despair. Where once there was an idea of evil, there is now an idea of good. Years pass. The main group of characters have gone on to live their lives. After the events in Falconia, even though Guts and Casca chose not to enact their revenge on Griffith, they cannot forgive him, and they cannot be the ones to see through his punishment. Rickert steps up to do this. He stays in Falconia, becoming part of the world's leadership under a reformed empire. Skull Knight and Zod are left to hunt down and kill the remaining apostles that do not wish to reform and join the new society. Farnese, Serpico, Isidro, and Shirkei leave together to continue their training and exploration of the world, returning to visit as much as they can. And Guts, Casca, and their child, now named Judo after their long-lost friend, return to Godo's homestead, where they live out the rest of their days. They continue throughout their lives together to help each other heal from the wounds of their past. Until one night, a hooded figure comes upon the homestead. Guts is awakened in the darkness and makes his way to the door. There he sees her, Theresia, the girl who swore vengeance on him all those years ago. After all this time and everything he has done, there are still sins he has to atone for, so he accepts her challenge to a duel. He takes her to the Hill of Swords, where all his fallen comrades are memorialized. He does not draw a weapon. Instead, he begins to talk to Theresia, to tell her his tale. He tells her of how he was absorbed by rage, driven by revenge, and how he would do anything to get it. How he thought he was right to feel that way, to act that way. But then he tells her how he was wrong. As the sun rises, the horizon gleaming behind the broken and cracked God Slayer, which is implanted firmly at the center of the hill, Guts and Theresia talk, and Berserk ends. So yeah, that's my thoughts of how Berserk should end. Obviously, there are some bits in there that don't quite add up. I've taken some artistic liberties, if you will, to draw lines between certain topics, but I really think that the ending of Berserk is going to encapsulate a lot of the things that I've talked about. But really, that's what makes theorizing so fun. You never really know how it will end. You can just go with what you've been given so far, and it's been really, really enjoyable coming up with this ending. So now it's your turn. Let me know down below what you think of this ending of Berserk and what you would change, or how you think Berserk will end in your own head. While you're down there, you can like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to be alerted every single time that I upload. There should hopefully be one more video before the end of Berserk month. I'm working on it currently. If you want to pick up some manga for yourself, especially Berserk, you can do so over on Sci-Fi. There'll be a link down in the description, and if you use my code NERDLOUNGE, you can get 5% off of anything you purchase. And last but definitely not least, if you're not sick of seeing my face already, you can check out one of the videos on the left and right of me. But if you've had your fill of the Nerd Lounge for today, then I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.